Hey guys, Ron Placone here. I said last week that I was going to start this week's episode with a brief summary of the Hollywood Fringe Festival and our experience. So I'm going to do that. Wow. It was so much fun. It was so amazing. I feel, and I'm pretty sure Sarah K. Godot and Andrew Saxon feel this way too. It's like a really amazing summer camp ended, and we're all bummed out now going back to reality. It was such an amazing experience. Thank you so much to everyone who came out to see us. We sold out 3 out of the 5 shows. Out of 5 shows, 3 of them were sold out, and all of them had decent attendance, and y'all were amazing. Thank you so much for checking out Termination Fee, for your incredible reviews, for your energy. It means the world, and then some. And what's going to happen next? And also, we were nominated for a Playwright Award. So that was another highlight. And shout out to Fringe Management, Michael Blaha and Lee Costello, our photographer, James Robbins, and of course, Sarah K. Godot, Andrew Saxona, and myself. We all thank you very, very much. And what is next? Well, next, we're going to be working on the film, and we're going to see what we want to do next with the stage play as well. Both entities are going to exist simultaneously, hopefully for the foreseeable future. Right now, we're going to take a break. The run was amazing. It is kind of that rush that you would get, for me at least, as a theater kid in high school. It's that rush you would get when a really fun play run ended. You would kind of feel that rush and that sort of bittersweet sadness and all of the adrenaline and all of the massive highs and at times frustrating moments too, or moments of anxiety that all poured out on the stage. And then at the end, you take the bow, and it's just it's an amazing feeling. And even though I've definitely felt that a lot in my life as a stand-up and in other creative entities I've been part of, I never really felt that rush in the theater since high school, and it's amazing to feel it again. And I hope it's the start of a reconnection that I never even thought was going to happen. All right, I've gone on way too long. It was amazing. For right now, we're going to take a break. Going to take a short break. Sarah and Drew both have very exciting things in their personal lives happening. I'm not gonna broadcast their business here, but they both have some very significant things in their personal lives happening. So we're all gonna take a little breather, and then we're gonna go on the next steps. And Lucy, if you can hear her, is saying hello. All right, on to today's show. Episode 95. Walker Bragman. Walker Bragman is a journalist. He covered electoral politics, particularly during Bernie's first run in 2016, and now his main focus is public health. Right now, literal eugenics is on the rise in the United States, and this isn't limited to some 4chan space. This is in actual positions of power. We dive deep on this one. Please welcome to the show, Walker Bragman. Walker Bragman, good to see you. It's been a minute.
It's been a while.
I have my notes here. The first question is just, are we going to be okay? ? The second question is, no, seriously, are we though? ? And then the third thing is just a frowny face. So that's the show. What do you got?
All right. Great. Okay. I don't know, and God, I hope so.
All right, cool. And then just a frowny face to complement my frowny face.
Yep.
We should mention that as we're recording this, the big beautiful bill passed the Senate, and it'll be. I mean, by the time this comes out, there'll be more updates, but it's still pretty chilling. It was also what a chilling snapshot that Trump was celebrating it while he was being interviewed in a domestic concentration camp in Florida. Like, just breathe that in.
You can't make it up.
No, that shit felt years ago.
It's just one day is darker than the next.
So, well, let's talk about you, and then we'll get to current events. It'll be there, but I want to know about you. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in East Hampton.
Okay.
So on the east end of Long Island in what people colloquially refer to as the Hamptons.
Okay. So
I was a year-round person though. I'm not part of the the influx of vacationing wealth.
so how is that different? Like tell people
Okay,
how
so
that's different.
so so it's interesting, right? So East Hampton started out as like it was fishing and farming,
Hmm.
potato farms. Then I think those gave way to ducks. I think were a big thing on Long Island, like raising ducks and poultry. Um, and then over time, or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe it started out with ducks. Over time, it's become sort of a playground for the rich and famous, and there was always some of that, right? So Southampton, which is the old money Hampton, is has very established wealth and whatnot, and by the water in East Hampton, there's very large houses that have been there for fucking. Can I swear? Can we swear?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, so they've been there for fucking ever, and but in the 1980s, 90s, like yuppies, moved out there.
Hmm.
In the 70s, it was an artist community in East Hampton, and then they kind of started displacing some of the
Yeah, they always get forced out of somewhere. Those
yeah,
artists.
and then in the 80s, 90s, it was the yuppies, and growing up there was there was a cross section. I want to say I don't want to frame it as anything as something it's not, but there was a cross section of people in the area. There was a thriving, sort of upper middle class, and over time, they have been now displaced by extreme wealth, and so most of the people that I grew up with, I think, have moved away from there, and recently, my very best friend, his parents moved. And that's it's just you watch the community shrink, right? And so I think for me, as a kid, I wasn't really aware of sort of the socioeconomic factors right at play. Like I knew that some kids came out in the summertime, and I would see them at camp or whatever, and but it did become apparent to me by high school, like, oh, the stores are constantly changing, like the local businesses are moving away, the people are moving away, and so I kind of, I guess, grew up watching wealth displace and the impact of extreme wealth on a community, and today, I mean, I was just visiting my parents, and every day around like 4 o'clock. Every weekday there is the trade parade, because all the wealth has forced everybody out, but you still have all these businesses, and they need people to work at those businesses, and so they commute like an hour plus every day from Up Island to go work and service the very, very wealthy people in the Hamptons, and that adds hours to their commute every single day. It's ridiculous, and so 27, which is the main highway out there, is just backed up all the time, for miles, and they brought it on themselves, but it's still disheartening to see like all of this wealth has come and just kind of destroyed the community. Cost of living is insane and whatnot.
So I have no idea how a background like this could lead you to something like journalism, but we'll get to the bottom of this.
Well,
I have no clue. Doesn't add up at all.
Yeah, I mean, and also I will add this as well, that as this wealth has exerted this economic pressure on the area, like the Latino community out there has come under increasing, I guess they've been sort of vilified by some of the local people. I think when I was in high school, some kids from like generational families out there who, not like the towny kind of families, not
Yeah.
I think threatened a Hispanic kid with a chainsaw.
Oh, jeez.
and it got like written up in major news. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of racism out there that's been directed at the migrant workers who come out there and work and live, multiple families to a house, and it's not really a tenable situation, and it's just this created this economic monoculture, bred resentment, and we're kind of seeing that, I think, nationally, right? Like as more and more wealth gets funneled upward, we see increasingly sort of survivalistic, like I got mine and this is my land, my family, like fuck everybody else, and especially those people who don't look like me.
We're seeing it to its extreme now. I mean,
Yes.
This is the find out section, and yeah, no, totally, and it's interesting. I mean, I can imagine growing up in a place like that. My wife is from Cape Cod, and I didn't really know. I mean, I guess I probably had an idea, but I really got a firsthand look at it. Like meeting her family and hearing her tell me about what it was like growing up there, and yeah, if you are a quote, a townie or somebody who just works there, I mean, your experience is nothing like the people with summer homes.
Yeah.
Like those are just two completely different worlds. Like
yes.
The people from, like when people say, oh, I'm from Cape Cod, it's, oh, that must be like, no. Not if you, I mean, it's a very working class area. If you are from there and you live and work there, if you have a second home there, yeah, then right. You got a buck or two. But
no, I don't want to. I don't want to give your audience the wrong impression. Like my dad, my parents are not sort of the local like generational families that have been there, working and fishing and whatnot. That's not what they do. My
understood. Yeah,
parents were were professionals, so
sure.
But because of and it was sort of like an odd place to kind of be in the stratification there, because you're not part of the uber wealth. Like, I have to work. I could not afford to buy a home out there. I couldn't, that's not me. My wife and I do not live there. We have moved out, together we moved.
I'm glad you and your wife live together. That's a good call, dude. Proud of you.
Hey, look, one of us does this, like, podcasting. The other, I'm a writer. I don't, there's a reason I communicate with where I take some time, put it down on paper first. If any of this comes off poorly, like just attribute it to that. No, but it was weird to be like, to the point where, like, my parents haven't been forced out yet. But
right.
They're definitely feeling the squeeze. Everybody is. It's impossible not to. There's this airport out there that a lot of my critics on Twitter and whatnot, when I use Twitter, would point to my me criticizing this airport, like, oh, like your concerns of just like first world problems, basically.
Okay. Because you were criticizing an airport?
Yeah, so
right.
the airport has become like a highway for the rich and famous to like get out to the East End very quickly. It used to be this tiny little airport for like local pilots with their small single engine prop planes, right? But now it's got corporate jets coming in and whatnot. It's like blown up, and if you actually go out there and you see it, it's like, that doesn't look totally safe. Like, those planes are way too big for what this is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just part of the overall trend of the place. And again, I want to stress that this is a microcosm for what we're seeing nationally. Like, yes, some areas become very popular with wealth and big money, but other areas become less popular and deindustrialize, and so you see like money move out of places, and I think that's a lot of the country as well. It's just bad. Inequality is terrible. We're seeing it at its extreme, and
it's almost like when you concentrate wealth in the hands of a few, nobody wins.
Exactly.
Everybody loses except for those few people that have it. Imagine that.
Exactly. And they're so fucking empty. They're so empty. Like I don't think I ever really stood a chance. I was always going to be progressive, always gonna, find extreme wealth.
Well, when did you kind of start having a political awakening?
So, my dad has always been very, very like old school New Deal, FDR style, like liberal, and
Does he like what you do?
yeah, he thinks
Okay.
that the work that I'm doing now, related to public health, is super important. My mother is also very supportive. She's become more political over the years as well.
What's she do?
Like Democratic Party,
Okay.
liberal. But for me, it was probably high school. I think I have a good friend who made this documentary in high school about the decline of the potato farmers out on the East End, and it was
He was in high
featured.
school when he made it?
Yeah, it was
Oh,
featured
wow.
in like the we have a film festival, and they showed it, and so he was always very like tuned in to sort of the sense of loss of the local community, and his name is Alex. I'll give him a shout out. He's also a phenomenal singer songwriter,
Nice.
and yeah, just very very tuned into that. And I think I would credit him for sort of opening my eyes to like what the area really was. And once you see it, you can't go back. Like when I first brought my now wife out there, she was like really excited to go and see the area because she'd heard about it. And then when she got there, she's like, "This is not at all what I expected." And you've kind of ruined this for me because like once you see it, you can't unsee it.
That's interesting, man.
Hey,
So, all right. So
come on out. I'll show you. I'll take you around. I'll show you, sort of give you a sense of what it was and what it is today. Like it's so commercial. Like Sag Harbor has always been sort of like it's fishing. It's local people. But in recent years, Sag Harbor is the next hamlet that's become like that's blown up, and like now the docks are just all these mega yachts and like the people who are working there at the local businesses like kind of hate it.
yeah.
Have you ever heard of the band The Weaker Thens?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know that song "One Great City"?
I don't know that song, but yeah.
It's the I hate Winnipeg. Like,
oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I have heard that song. Yeah.
That song, that like I play that song every time I drive out there. Like,
okay.
because that's the area. It's the same kind of sense. Like all the local people are like, oh my God, like they're just trying to get by and like this sucks under increasing pressure. And the only people who are like, oh, I love this place are the super rich who are destroying it.
Oh wow. Yeah. So what happens? You have a political awakening in high school. You're noticing this inequality and your friends making a documentary. So what do you decide to do for college then? Was college next?
Yeah, so I did a post-grad year at a New England prep school because I have terrible ADHD, and my parents did not think I was ready for college. They were probably right. So I did a post-grad year, like an academic post-grad year, which is somewhat unheard of.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it was.
And what does that mean exactly?
It means I just went and took more classes. Like I graduated high school, and then I went back to I graduated through the public school system, and then I in Sag Harbor, and then went to a private school and took some like targeted classes for like history and American history, which I was very interested in, and a number of other, philosophy and whatnot. And then I went to Skidmore, and was not super political at Skidmore. I was very very into extracurricular activities.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but I did get more political toward the end of my time there.
What'd you study?
Government.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you've always had this like policy bent.
Yeah. Oh, and I
Okay.
did political cartoons for years. So,
Right.
I mean, I never
So how did
really had
that
a
start?
chance.
I mean, I know about that part of you, but so how did that start? Was that in college then?
No, that was eighth grade.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. I didn't realize that. So
Yeah,
so
no,
you can draw well.
I yeah, I haven't done it in a long time, so I'm very out of practice. But I, I, I was one of those people, like one of those millennials, who's like remarkable kid, mediocre adult.
Mm.
That's sort of how I feel about myself. Like, oh, it was great. I was great at being a kid, but at adulthood, I'm kind of like sort of making it up as I go along.
So
Um,
with the ADHD, was it one of those things like that just came naturally to you? So you always just had no problem doing that, like making the cartoons and making the. Because I'll tell you something about me, and like just to sort of give some like background on where this question is coming from. I was diagnosed with ADHD about a year ago.
oh,
So
welcome.
later in life, thank you. So it was later in life, and it was basically a result of I was in a situation, basically having to do with the kind of like the bureaucratic work of getting my movie to distribution. And I was very overwhelmed because I never really handled anything like that before. And it was an experience and it was really freaking rough. And, as I was going through, the steps and whatnot, and, my therapist kind of said, "You've been high masking for years, and here's how you were probably able to do it." And I've always been this way, throughout school and stuff. If it interests me, I had no
Oh
problem.
yeah,
If it didn't, I had a lot of problems. But I
yes,
was
that's
able to get by that way. That's why I did better in college than I did in high school, because most of the stuff I was doing in college I was interested in. And then as I became an adult, as a road comic, I was able to mask very easily because it's just like being on stage always just was something I loved. So I didn't mind it. And driving to I mean, how are you going to get, I mean, obviously you can get distracted on the road, but when your only responsibility is you have to be on stage at this time,
yeah.
you're going to figure that shit out.
Oh
And
yeah,
so I was able to be, and then I was in graduate school. I was really interested in the work I was doing. So I never had a problem. So it's like I was able to be a high masking person for so many years. And then when I was faced with tasks related to my creative endeavors, but still tasks that didn't come as naturally to me, all of a sudden my world came crashing down.
mm-hmm.
And now, now that I have a prescription, I'm realizing, oh man, I wonder, maybe I could have been a doctor had they got this earlier.
Well, see, I was medicated most of my my childhood. I think from like T-ball is when I got medicated because I could not sit still. I was running around. I was apparently, and I'm worried because, now as a father of a new baby, like I'm worried that my that my son is going to be uh, equally a terror. But I was real terror to be to raise. I was talking to my father about this, and so
Wow.
they put me
Okay.
on medication, but I always hated it. Like I just felt anxious and jittery. I mean, it was Ritalin, so it's um, anxious, jittery, like what's constantly on edge. And so when I went away to school and I had the option, I stopped taking it, and so
Hmm.
my grades definitely suffered, and they suffered through college. But it's been a learning experience since trying to navigate unmedicated. And there have been times where I've considered taking medication, but my experience was so, I think, jarring that I've stayed away from it. So if you found a medication that works for you, like, awesome, that's great.
Well, it's pretty low dose, and it's when I need it.
Yeah.
Like I don't like I kind of take it when I need it. And it's prescribed a certain way, not to go over, like a certain amount. And so usually that is the max I will take in a day. And I don't take it on the weekends typically. I don't take it, unless I have like a big project or something. So yeah, it's kind of an as needed thing for me, and that has really helped my life a ton.
That's awesome.
Um,
That's so
so
good.
Yeah, I mean, and I wish. I mean, I try not to dwell on like, oh, I wonder what could have been. But yeah, I wish that this would have been addressed sooner, or that I would have realized it sooner.
Yep.
But I don't know. It's sort of like in a weird way, I sort of feel like, oh man, Professor X taught me how to control my power.
Yeah,
You
a little
know,
bit.
like I was using it before, but I didn't really control it. I wasn't getting the most out of it. And now, and some people complain about like it stifles creativity. I haven't experienced. I mean, knock on wood, I haven't experienced that. But
I don't think it stifles creativity. I think that it's definitely good for when you need to focus on something, and
yeah,
on stuff that does not interest you, because ADHD, as you said, when you're interested, you can
yeah, you're
hyperfixate and
fine.
like
You're
you're
fine.
good.
Yeah.
You're good. In fact, maybe you're too good and you need to like transition. Like changing gears can be difficult. Um, yeah, I mean, it's a lifelong struggle, and if you don't even realize you're doing it, I mean, I can't even imagine. That's tough.
I mean, it was just I was reading a lot of books, and then and it was just sort of, oh God, that's me. Oh God, that's me. Oh God, that's me. And I know some of that stuff. It's so general that I feel like any average person, it applies to them sometimes. Like, oh, do you ever
Yes.
have trouble? Of course, everybody does, especially the age of the phone that's in our pockets. But when it's just you go a couple levels deeper and it's like, well, has this ever happened? Has that ever happened? Has it ever, like how does it, impact your mood? Because if it's doing this, that's a sign of something. And then realizing, oh, yeah, this is me.
Yep.
It's a really, and a really amazing thing. And sometimes I look back on that hardship and I think, man, in a way, maybe that hardship needed to happen for me to reach this plane.
Yeah.
But so let's
Therapy
talk.
is helpful there,
Oh, totally.
well, like that's helped me deal with, you know like come to understand the condition better. Like I think the missing piece for me growing up was, I never really did therapy. I mean, my parents tried to put me in therapy, and I don't think I really took to it. But as an adult,
Mm.
I will credit my wife for, saying like, hey, like, go talk with somebody. And um, it's been very helpful to like understand the condition, and like, oh, that's, because it does affect all aspects of your life, and I didn't realize it affected the social aspects as well as the work. And
Yeah.
so once I had that realization, I think it was very helpful to me, in my personal relationships.
So how did you get into journalism?
Oh God, a weird route. I mean, maybe not that weird, but I started blogging at HuffPost, and then like just doing their like free like Right for Exposure blog, right out after college, and then like in 2015, 2016, I got my first op-ed published anywhere, and that was by Salon, because I had a hot take, about the 2016 election, where I was in the Bernie or bust camp, and I uh, you know like thought, here's the election. We've got an unpopular candidate. We're coming up in 4 years. We're going to have a census year election, and that's going to determine control of the House for another decade. And remember in 2010, the midterms, the Republicans like swept in. They took all the state legislatures. They redistricted the House to give themselves like a permanent advantage, and they were
Hmm.
able to control the House despite losing most of the votes nationwide for like 8 years. And that was like the end of Obama's presidency. Not that Obama had a huge vision for like radical change, but like he was not going to get anything through that.
Yeah.
That
Well, he told us he did.
well, sure,
He told
but
us he did.
So in 2016, I really, put off by Clinton and sort of the Democratic establishment and their loyalists, looked at that and was like, oh, this is coming up. Like maybe it would be better if Clinton ended up losing. Now, looking back, today. And I think for years I've sort of been saying this, but like I would not write those pieces the same way today. um, Certainly, a lot of that writing has not held up. And if I could burn it off of the internet for good, I probably
Oh,
would.
wow.
But I can't, and I just have to kind of own that. But yeah, my route to journalism was I was writing these op-eds, and I sort of realized, I think in 2017, 2018, that like everybody could write an op-ed, and there were way better writers than me. But what we were really lacking was, journalism, like actual reporting.
Yeah, we don't do that much here.
And so I was looking at like what was happening in Yemen, and decided that I kind of want to do this as like a thing. I want this to be my thing. And so I started doing reporting, and I didn't have one beat for years. I was sort of reporting on whatever interested me, whatever story I felt was the biggest injustice. I wanted to write about that. So I wrote about Yemen. I wrote about homelessness. I covered Democratic Party politics and races where progressives were running up against establishment picks. I wrote about I'm trying to think, like, a climate a fossil fuel bill that like everybody voted for, including like AOC, and it was sort of a covert way of supporting fossil fuel infrastructure. And I was like, what the hell? And that was my first taste of like impact of my work, because once I wrote that, like a bunch of environmental groups saw it and were like, oh my God, like what? And they put out a statement against the legislation. So yeah, I guess from writing bad op-eds to writing stories, and doing investigative journalism. And today, now I cover public health. I did find my beat with the COVID-19 pandemic. I was working for The Lever, which is David Sirota's outlet, back when it was the Daily Poster. It started as the Daily Poster. It was a newsletter. And then it became The Lever. And while I was there, it was COVID was happening. It was the height of the first wave, and my wife ended up getting called back into the office before vaccines were available. And this is in New York City, right? Like, we're living in Brooklyn. We're hearing sirens every night of ambulances going by and bringing people to the hospital, and freezer trucks full of bodies. Friends are taking pictures of them and sending them to me. So,
no, it was crazy. I mean, and people in the medical field, while that was going on, they would show you just the hospital. I mean, it looked like something out of a movie.
Yep.
I mean, it was wild.
And a very good friend of mine who was a doctor, was working in a hospital at the time, and I was in communication with them. They were like, this is a nightmare. Like, and so I from that I was like, well, this isn't right. Something here is fucked up. Like, who's making this decision to bring people back? Like, what is driving this? Because the science hasn't changed. The virus is still here. It's still killing people. Like, what's going on? And that led me to Andrew Cuomo. And I wrote this piece about how he was still allowing remote work for his people and himself, but he was trying to get people back into offices. And like, who benefits? Do any of his allies? And sure, of course, the answer was yes. My take on COVID, even sort of early on, once we had the shutdown, was we should stay kind of shut down and just pay people to stay home until we have a vaccine and like reach a critical mass of vaccination, and then we can sort of reopen, which I think is kind of what Australia did, although that the reopening was still kind of brutal for them.
Well, I think the biggest thing was how quickly this thing mutated.
Yeah.
because I think a lot of people, and we have seen the effects of all of this, because now there is this, just like very misdirected mistrust in, science and medicine, unlike anything we've ever seen contemporarily in both of our lifetimes.
Yeah.
And it's because, and look, I mean, I'm not a fan of any of our institutions. Like I'm really not a fan of, because of like how you put it. I think that from the get-go, capitalism was first, public health
Yes.
was a freaking afterthought. That's the
Yes.
system, and I hate that. I mean, I always will. But you know, people have gone, instead of seeing that for what it is and realize we need to go in a more communal direction, in a more public health oriented direction. People have gone, they've ricocheted the other way
The other way.
into a pseudoscience, and straight up eugenics, which by the way, we're going to talk about this. But like into straight up eugenics. And a lot of it just has to do that the people didn't understand. And let's be honest, part of it wasn't explained well to people that, look, this virus is mutating really freaking fast. And so when it mutates and it has a viable host, whether it's an unvaccinated person or it's a new strain and the vaccine you got was from a while ago or whatever else, you are a compatible host. And a virus mutates by chance. That's how a virus, it doesn't have a brain. It can't decide like, ooh, I see this barrier, but I'm going to go around it because of it. No, it's just total chance.
Yeah.
But when it happens, and so people just didn't really, I don't want to say they didn't understand, but a lot of people just didn't want to accept that, and instead started going down this rabbit hole of just pseudoscientific bullshit that contradicted findings that are, explained to you in the 7th grade.
Well, they're very,
and it's frightening.
They're very, like, as you say, they went the other way, away from collective action, and more like, well, when can I get back to my routine? Because I'm over this now. I do want to say, polling consistently showed more support for mitigation measures than political leaders were willing to acknowledge. Like, most Americans still supported controlling the virus, even through the Biden administration. Like, even when they were, trying to get everything open, and it's just.
I mean, do you believe that? I want to believe that.
I do believe it because
all right. I hope you're right. I really do.
I think that if you tell people this is serious and we have to, do stuff and this is not over, people will accept that. What I don't think they'll accept is like, hey, you're kind of on your own, but we're going to tell you can't do X, Y, and Z. Like
that's an interesting way. That's okay.
If government is there and saying, okay, we're going to provide this support, like the CARES Act and the COVID relief was all super popular because for the first time, a lot of people were able to like save money and actually like, we cut poverty significantly, child poverty, especially with, the child tax credit passed under Biden and his American Rescue Plan. Like, these were effective policies. Pandemic unemployment assistance, which started with, under Trump, very effective policy, gave people money. The stimulus checks, amazing. Give people money, help.
No, that's an interesting way of looking at it. That makes me, all right. I'm a little less,
paid leave, like, like all of these things, like the pause on evictions, the pause on student loan repayments, like all of these things were good policies. And I will say, like, I had I think a big political awakening with COVID as well, because I realized that, like, people who I thought I was aligned with politically, I had very little in common with. Here's a crisis that necessitates kind of big government, right? Like, this requires a New Deal scale response, and is an opportunity, I think, for people on the left to push through some very needed reforms. I mean, single payer is obviously one, but making any of those COVID relief programs permanent would have been
Right.
just a huge, huge coup. And sort of all the progressive orgs kind of like just stayed focused on the things they'd been focused on before and didn't realize, or maybe didn't care about the stuff that we like passed.
Well, there was no context, there was no nuance, there was no actual analysis, there was no, like thinking about who was really calling the shots. Who was, I mean, and it's like, look, man, we don't have to like completely go down this rabbit hole, or it'll dominate the whole interview. But the way I see it, all this stuff was incredibly popular. And I think a lot of people had a moment where they thought, why are we living the way we do? Why is society arranged this way?
That's it.
And really, I think the powers that be,
yes,
that was 100%. What scared them the most. That 100%. Scared them the most. They were
Absolutely.
Like, we don't want people realizing this. So get them back to work.
That's exactly
right. Get them back to work.
So let's say you're like a very like powerful right-wing mega donor. And you see that suddenly people are realizing that poverty is a policy choice, that their struggle are policy choices, and that government is actually capable of helping them. Well, for a movement, the conservative movement, as to the extent we can even call it that, as opposed to like an AstroTurf campaign by major corporate interests to reshape America, that movement is predicated on, as Reagan said, the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Actually, with COVID, what COVID showed is that the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and you're on your own. Like in a major crisis, you need bureaucracy. You need a system that is capable of responding. And we did, a motivated Trump administration and Republican Congress facing, the 2020 election, which was, again, a census year election. Down ballot results really do matter. They passed with, Democrats, got this stuff in the first place. But like they passed it, and it was a generous relief bill. It was the largest expansion of the safety net in decades. Like that's and I didn't see much focus on that from sort of anywhere. No. And for me,
well, if they would have done a little more, Trump would have won in a landslide. If he would have just done like 2 months of a UBI right before the election, he would have won in a landslide. I think.
I do think that he probably would have won if he hadn't been so erratic and so focused on getting everything reopened. But that's like if Trump weren't Trump. Right, because Trump is
totally
fundamentally a self-interested, incompetent, bloviating, racist, self-serving, asshole, and that's the government that we got. We got like he passed that relief and then was like, okay, now can we open? Like just a totally capricious guy, and so. He ends up presiding over like 400,000 American COVID deaths on the day he walks out of that office.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, that should have been the end of Donald Trump. Like that should have been the end of his political career. But the next guy comes in, Biden, and he initially arranges this amazing panel of expert voices to advise on COVID response, and then promptly says we're not going to close the country because one of those panelists comes out and says we should do a 4-week shutdown. Biden,
he wouldn't even do it.
No, we can't do that. And he embraces.
He didn't even go to like the smaller thing. I mean, like, okay, why wasn't there air filtration standards frickin' everywhere? Why didn't that happen? Like that could have happened. And that really impacts people's lives pretty much not any way whatsoever. Like what are you going to complain that there's cleaner air? Is that imposing on your freedom to breathe in shit? Is that like are you mad that it's why wasn't it why wasn't it top bottom required testing on the company's time and on the company's dime? Why wasn't it everyone who walked into a warehouse had a test provided to them indefinitely, all of those things that could have happened that actually truly put the working class first, that weren't even talked about. And it was because I think a bunch of right-wing astroturf people, not even just limited to the Republican Party, dominated the conversation. And we were limited to these ridiculous silos that made no fundamental sense. And it was so cringe to watch. And
Yes,
still is, because
100%.
now we're seeing the effects of it, which I want to get to this now. We're seeing the effects of it, which is a booster of fascism. I'm not saying that fascism just started here, but we've reached a new level of it, big time. And
it's pretty what we're seeing now, I think, is pretty unprecedented. It's
totally.
It's fucking scary. And like, this is why, during the election, I was like I know that you're not happy with your choices, but like, come on, people, like, what are we doing? Like,
well, it's not. It goes deeper than that, because the reality is, like, this is when you have a 40+ year rugged neoliberal experiment.
Yeah,
this is what happens 100% of the time. It never leads to anything else.
It's not. But still, even delay, like, even any step between where Biden and where we are today, like, it's night and day, right? Like,
sure,
like the Biden administration was presided over, 800,000 COVID deaths. They really bungled the pandemic response, because Biden, as you said, like, bowed to sort of right-wing demands to reopen the country, and I think business demands as well. I think his focus was like, we can turn the page. The virus was not going anywhere, and his advisors were saying, like, it's not going anywhere, so, like, declare victory and move on. People are getting tired of this.
Mm-hmm.
And that was bad advice, and he was poorly served by it, and the American people were poorly served by it. And he let COVID relief expire on his watch, which is political suicide. You do not give people less relief than your predecessor and expect to come away smelling like roses. That's just not, like, what are you doing? People love government relief when they're getting it. They love it. And that's why you can't kill a program like Social Security with, they're
going to try.
Yeah, they've been trying.
Don't say they can't.
I'm not going to say they can never do it, but I will say, it's taken them 40, 50 years to get to this point. And like, because
I'll say this, man, and we don't have to necessarily debate this, but I don't think you and I are going to see a dime. I think it's going to be gone by the time we're if the country's still a thing. Which
I hope not. Like,
me too. But I'm not. I mean, I just expect it to be gone. Like I think they're going to get it. Carlin predicted it. I think he was right.
This presidency is the only way back from this ledge is through massive, social government response, social programs, investing in the public goods safety net, like we've never seen. A historic, the New Deal, but like on steroids.
Absolutely.
That's the only way we're gonna come back from this.
Well, hold on. Let's before we get to a topic like that, I want to get to talking about what the past 4+ years have really led to, especially in the public health space, which I would describe as eugenics. RFK is a eugenicist. That's not embellishment. That's not being funny. How can you? Listen to what he says. And honestly, I think some of the problem, and I know you're a more diplomatic person than I am, but like, I think part of the problem is every time the guy talks, it sounds like he's trying to go down on a piece of gravel. So people just understand every third word of what he says. So they don't quite realize how fucked up what he just says is. And honestly, I think the thing with that guy is he was born on third base with the bases loaded and the pitcher just walked the batter and all he had to do was walk home. He's a frickin' Kennedy. He's the establishment of the establishment of the establishment.
I know.
And he didn't get the spotlight that he wanted to get because of his other family members. So he had nothing but time to just be influenced by a bunch of pseudoscience bullshit. And he made a career out of it because actually doing some okay work in the environmental space wasn't enough for him. So instead, he had to surrender to this nonsense. And I don't think I just think he's not really that bright of a guy. If you have every advantage in the world, you can eventually get a law degree. It's really not. I mean, but like every advantage in the goddamn world, you can get that law degree.
It's not that hard to get a law degree.
No, it really
takes money. It takes money.
Yeah.
And time.
But when money's not an issue, money or time, you never have to do anything in your goddamn life. You're going to be able to get that law degree.
I think he was always just an unremarkable guy. And, you know, he had a lot of problems because, you know, I think he's got a lot of problems. I mean, he's a recovered heroin addict who, you know, got clean and made it everybody's problem.
Yeah.
Like he's somebody who like dove into the wellness space and went nuts. And, you know, like, look, so there are a couple of things. You have the you know, wellness, you know, kookery has been around for years, and it's been typically associated with the left, right? Like the crunchy granola folks and whatnot.
I like crunchy granola. There is some, like, it's not like there's certain things, and I know you and I have had conversations like this off mic, where it's like I kind of like. Well, no, finish. I cut you off there. Like, finish your thought.
So yeah, like that's always been there, but underlying all of that is this sort of eugenicist attitude that your health is your responsibility and your choices determine your health, and which is not really true, right? Like, there's a lot that goes into your health, and your choices are part of it, but they're not the most of it. Like, you can do everything right and you can get cancer and die.
Yep.
And my stepfather, he ate well. He ate, you know, fish, a lot of fish. He you know, vitamins, smoothies for breakfast. Like, he was, you know, he took care of himself. He did a lot of exercise, very fit in shape guy. And he got cancer, and it eventually did take his life. And, you know, when you hear this kind of talk, and it's louder now, but it's always kind of been there. Like, oh, your health is you know, depends on you. It's like that isn't true. It's ableist. And frankly, it is there's a twinge of eugenics there. And so that's
there's
been
the pipeline.
But with COVID, because of what you said earlier, how the powers that be realized that, like, people were having this awakening, you saw a coordinated right-wing push to get everything back to normal as quickly as possible and politicize basic public health measures, shutdowns, masks, whatever, anything they could grab onto, COVID origins, anything. And hey, like, they had the election, so they're worried about Trump's reelection, they're worried about Republicans down ballot, and they're worried about this broader cultural, you know, shift toward big government. The entire project of the conservative project is at risk. And so they're very motivated, and they start pushing out this stuff like, maybe the virus isn't that bad. It begins, I think it begins really in like January 2020, before anything, with a piece in the New York Post by some like AIDS, you know, contrarian guy about questioning like, maybe COVID's not that bad. And then the first national think tank that gets involved, that I've found, is the Hoover Institution, which starts, you know, maybe COVID's not that bad. Maybe it's not going to kill that many people. And from there, it's easy to build off of like, hey, we should just get back to normal. And so this coordinated push turns up the pressure. You know, you start seeing anti-lockdown protests backed by groups like Tea Party Patriots, and like the Mackinac Center and whatnot. And that has an effect. Like, people start showing up at state capitals, like in Michigan, and they start showing up armed at the governor's mansions, and they start plotting to kidnap, you know, Gretchen Whitmer, who's at this point in 2020, you know, standing up and saying, we're going to keep the shutdown order in place, and we're going to, you know, shelter in place and take care of this virus. And they you know, that has an impact. So a few months later, Whitmer backs away from the shutdowns when Biden's in office, and she's like, no, I can't do that again. Like, we're not doing that. It just the right is very good at generating anger and the perception that the public is fed up with something because their vocal minority is very loud, and it's amplified by big money. So that was going on, and then on the left, I think I don't really know where the left was with COVID. I just don't. I thought everybody would be on the same page as me. Like, hey, we should just pay people to stay home. Like, let's buff up our public goods and services, and let's pass like a big brand new deal, COVID New Deal, and go from there. But instead, you start to see these like merchants of doubt from the right get amplified by prominent, ostensibly left-wing people, like Jimmy Dore or Max Blumenthal, these sort of contrarian types who are on the fringes, but like, they start, cozying up to these guys as like anti-establishment voices, as if the, these people now who are now leading our public health agencies were somehow anti-establishment, despite being aligned with the biggest business interests in the country.
Wall Street funded, ties to the CIA. It is a joke upon a joke that people consider a Kennedy somehow anti-establishment.
Or like,
that people can,
or like Jay Bhattacharya, right? Like he's this Jay is like this Hoover Institution ghoul who wrote like an anti-Medicare for all piece, like in February, I want to say 2020. Like, no, the pandemic shouldn't cause us, or maybe it was March. Like, we shouldn't have Medicare for all. Like, the pandemic should not make us nationalize healthcare. And like people on the left eat this guy up. Like people on the left who supposedly care about single payer, like embrace this guy with open arms. And they're like, yeah, no, he's totally right. Like lockdowns are really damaging the poor. And it's like, if that were true, which it's not, like lockdown period in the US was not where you see poverty spike. In fact, people, that's when we had the most government relief. But even if that were true, why is the answer force everyone back to work instead of like government? And government relief? Why is that not in your fucking calculus, dude?
Here's the problem, though. Where there was ammunition for that entire perspective was the fact that we did not roll things out as properly as we should have. Where we did not, I mean, like you look at some of the things that small businesses went through, where they just kind of put these loans up for grabs and said, "Hey, go get your money." Well, who's going to get that money when basically everything's a small business? The person who has a team of lawyers filled out the application at 11:59 when it goes live at midnight, or the freaking family who has a small business and they're like wondering what's going to happen to their kids, so then they don't get the money. So yeah, like it is failures on multiple levels, but they were able to kind of weaponize that to say, well, the best thing is for just everyone to go back to work. That it's like, well, no, that's not the best thing. But there were multiple failures. You're not wrong when you point that out. And,
that the PPP loans were a disaster, but that was Trump. But like,
totally. I mean, it's just even regardless of like what was going on in the White House, like the way it unfolded. Still had so much to be desired. I mean, I was lucky enough to be in a state like California where it was kind of easy to get a lot of the aid that you were entitled to through the pandemic. There were other states where it was, I mean, I know people that got basically nothing, except for the whatever it was that Trump gave. And then there was the Biden said it was 2,000, but no, it was really that 600 counted, that whole thing. I mean, so it's like, there are so many failures to go around, and it all comes back to just right-wing neoliberal policy. And instead of recognizing that is the common enemy, people kind of form this circular firing squad where it's like, oh, well, the problem is, the problem is the lockdown because it wasn't distributed the right way. Well, no, the problem was the capitalists at the top controlling this all and trying to have an upward transfer of wealth. That's the problem.
So they also used like the third world as like an excuse. Like look at the impact that these shutdowns are having on the third world. And it's true that disruption to global commerce definitely hurt countries, developing countries. But like your alternative here is just like there really isn't. Yeah, we should up our foreign aid. Absolutely. We should be giving, helping the world through this. But, we didn't do that. We withdrew from the world. I mean, Trump, trying to withdraw from the World Health Organization. Like this is a guy who's
he's going to get it now.
America first, like first and only. But like,
well, so let's jump to now.
Oh,
well, I kind of want to jump to now because we're running out of time, and I really want to get so where do you think all of this is headed with a straight up eugenicist in charge of public health, a guy with no medical degree, by the way? I actually consider RFK maybe the most dangerous person in American politics right now. I think in some ways he is more dangerous than Trump, more dangerous than, basically anyone.
Well, if I were trying to destroy or destabilize a country, one of the first things I would do, if not the first thing, is dismantle its public health.
Yeah.
Right. So like RFK is a longtime anti-vaccine activist, and he's got his allies atop the NIH, atop the FDA, like he heading ACIP at the the CDC, like the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. Like he's got his people in key places. And by the way, those allies are Marty Makary at FDA, Jay Bhattacharya at NIH, and Martin Kulldorff at ACIP. All three of those people were held up as like champions of freedom by people on the ostensible left throughout COVID because they advocated against mitigation measures and wanted people to be infected. Those are the people who are now, the anti-establishment folks are now leading our fucking public health system, and they are dismantling it systematically. And that, where is it heading? It's heading to brain drain. It's heading to damage that will not be, irreparable damage that will take us decades to undo. Like that's where it's heading. And it's heading to people dying of preventable diseases and government normalizing, hey, like we don't have to respond to a public health crisis because infection is just as good as any vaccine. Like, no, we don't have to respond. So it's incredibly scary and disheartening. And like, these people are not serious people. They're not like serious, heavyweight, intellectual, academic types. They are people who are good at generating noise on social media and telling, people, listen to us because everyone else is lying. It's just a shame. And it's something I feel like I've been sort of shouting into the void for, years now. I've been warning about these people. And to see them like leading our public health agencies is just it's so devastating. And I just know people are going to die. People are going to die. People are already dying. We've had measles deaths because, we can't now agree on the reality that the MMR vaccine is safe and effective and like the best tool we have against fucking measles. Like we're going backwards because these people are trying to create and are succeeding in creating a world where bullshit and truth are just viewed as differences of opinion.
Mm.
And that's, that is bullshit. Like there is still objective reality. Science is testable. You can replicate, good studies you can replicate. And, I will say something to look out for is, they're now talking about replicability. Like Jay Bhattacharya has been saying, like, that's the gold standard of science. And like Kennedy's allies and his allies have created like these bullshit medical journals. So like we're probably going to see replicated studies in these like just not credible publications.
Well, and simultaneously academia is being dismantled.
Yeah. Well,
so this is a coup. I tell her, I'm like, this is what a fascist coup looks like on every level. Like this is, and I'm the first to admit, like, yeah, what we had in place was not great. There were a lot of frickin' problems, but you can still replace something bad with something worse, and that's what's happening.
Yes.
Like you're replacing bad with worse. And that doesn't. Now, the one silver lining, I think, and feel free to like tell me if you agree or disagree, is that one thing that we have been able to take away from all this is that change is very slow until it isn't. And, if there's going to be a sharp a sharp right turn towards disaster, there can, not saying it's likely even, but it's not impossible. There can be a sharp turn the other way.
There can. And I will say that, Mamdani is the most hopeful, development. His defeat.
It's going to take more than a mayor, but I hear you.
Yeah, of course. But I hope that it's a sign of what's to come, because for years the Democratic Party has been, and the thing that I do take and still, from my old sort of self before the pandemic, is that the Democratic Party is a very fucked up and broken institution.
That's being generous.
And has rested on its laurels for years, has been a conservative part, fundamentally conservative. And I mean, little c, operate within how the system, the structures that exist.
It would be at best a center-right party in almost any other country.
Right.
But almost any other industrialized country, it would be a center-right party.
But right now you have a Republican Party that's break shit and create, do something new. And that new stuff, by the way, is fascism. But break what exists. And the Democratic Party for years has been nope, we have to keep what exists and don't do, I mean.
But we'll hear you out. Tell us about some of the shit you want to break, but we'll let some of the ideas in.
Yeah. But really, we can accomplish that without breaking things. And some things need to be broken. Our for-profit healthcare system needs to be fucking broken, and it yesterday. I mean, now with the assault on Medicare and Medicaid, it's even more important that we need a national healthcare system, something that everyone has buy-in, and everybody cares about, because it'll take them 40, 50 years to dismantle it, maybe longer. That's nothing is free from the possibility of being ultimately destroyed. But you have to look at these programs, Social Security, the Civil Rights Act, all of this stuff that we did that's very popular and has a broad impact. It takes the right decades to get where they are now. And if that's the case, then that's an instructive point, right? It took them decades to build to where they are today. So it's going to take us decades to reverse it. But big programs are clearly the answer.
Well, so how does this, to end on something a little more personal, but also a theme with all we're doing. So how does your decision to be a father weigh in to all this? Because I mean, and I'll tell you, I'm not a parent. And part of the reason I'm not is because I look around at the world and I'm I don't think I want to bring a kid into this.
I suppose that bringing my son into the world, which my wife did, right?
You contributed, though. You were,
I contributed, but
you definitely did a thing. But I get it. Yeah, no, fair.
But the decision to have a kid, I think, is just optimism. I think fundamentally,
was it optimism or is it hope?
I think it's both.
Okay.
I think that something that people probably don't know about me, because I'm constantly this is fucked up and this is bad and oh my God, is that I remain fundamentally an optimist. I do think that we can pull ourselves back. I think that we will. I think that it's going to take us a long time. I want to be part of that solution. I don't care, who you voted for in the last election. If you think what's happening now is fucked up and you want to stand against it, and you're going to stand up for, trans rights, and you're going to stand up against the assault on the poor, then yeah, sure. You're fighting the fight that I'm fighting. I think that we can come together as a people and we can stop this. It's going to be bad for a long time. But that doesn't mean that it's forever. And I want my son to have a better world than the one that our generation is inheriting. I want I want these rich fucks who came and destroyed the community in my hometown to pay their fucking fair share and be millionaires again instead of billionaires. I want to take their, from them, their ill-gotten gains and redistribute it to the people who have been working to keep this country going for fucking generations. And just like, God damn it. Like, it's just, the fixes are so common sense and so obvious. We need a national healthcare system. We need to tax the fuck out of these people, not just as a way to pay for shit, but as a defense of our democracy. Because somebody like Elon Musk shouldn't be able to buy the presidency for his preferred candidate, or a lobby group like AIPAC shouldn't be able to oust a sitting congressman with, millions of dollars into a congressional race. And it's just so obvious what needs to happen. And we need an anti-corruption Democratic Party, and it will be the Democratic Party, or, that's basically where we're at today. It's like, this is our vehicle. This is the only vehicle that's available to us. Nothing is coming up to replace it. And unless progressives inside the party electeds break off and form their own thing, which is not happening.
That would be the only way that it would.
It's the only way that's happening.
I mean, because there's so many policy hurdles. Yes. No, I do think it's worth it to fight for those policy hurdles, because I think the only way you're going to see a two-party system that is more, straight up democratic is if you have more of a parliamentary style setup. Because the reason, because they have the same bullshit in other places where there's usually two parties that, piss you off, that have the most power, but they're not as fucked up. And the reason they're not as fucked up is because there's other smaller parties that have a little bit of power. So you got to get their frickin' votes. If you're Labour in the UK, you're fucked up, but you're not quite as fucked up as our Democratic Party. Because you know what?
They're trying now.
Oh, they're trying. They're trying. But they actually went back the other way a little bit. I mean, they went back the other way a little bit after they fucked over Corbyn. Like there was a grassroots swell after that a little bit. And it's because it's like, well, they got to reach out to, like UK Greens and socialists and whatnot. And so yeah, and I know that's a real tall glass of water here, and we can only imagine it. But I think electorally, it's something to push for.
Right. And like, look, it's so, like, again, it's just so obvious. Like, you have conversations right now in the Democratic Party, like, well, do we cede ground on trans rights? Like, where can we cede ground next? And it's like, stop giving up these fights. Do not sacrifice vulnerable fucking communities for political gain, because you won't win. People don't like that. They see it as squishy and whatever.
Yeah.
And
you give
also,
people a Republican, they'll just pick the Republican.
You don't feed the fucking jackals and expect them to eat their fill and leave you alone. They are fucking jackals, and they will be back for more. And you give up trans people, and then you give up immigrants, and you give up, and you don't have anything to recognize yourself at the end of the day. And then they're going to come for you. Like this, we can fix this, but we have to fight. And that means that Democrats are going to have to do things that they don't want to do. Maybe, like, they're going to have to get on board with the left on big issues,
something.
But it also means the left is going to have to do things that it doesn't like. It's going to have to get more involved in politics, in Democratic primaries. It's going to have to knuckle up and say, we're not going to win every race. We'll lose more races than we win, but the ones that we win will count because our people will fight. That's what you got to, like, I'm optimistic for the future. I am not the immediate future, but the long-term future. And
I hear you.
I want my son to just have a better world than we have today. And again, like, the people who I grew up watching destroy my town are destroying America. And that, it's just, that's,
I just think that most of those answers, especially when it comes to the left, electoral politics is definitely part of the equation. I would never say it isn't, but I think it's going to take.
It takes more than electoral politics.
It's going to take a general strike. It's going to take massive protest. It's going to take,
But it's also going to take voting.
Yeah.
Because,
It's
because
part of
if you don't,
part of
if you don't
but,
vote, the other side is still voting. And like, don't assume that because things are bad.
It's going to take voting in your neighborhood, though.
It's
going to take voting, but it's going to be like who's on that school board, who's on that water board, who's on that city council,
who's on your local Democratic committee. You know how I mean, this is something else. Like, I know we're almost practically out of time, but like, like Democratic committees in towns, small towns, like maybe 13 people, maybe 20 people. Yeah. Like, it's very small. Like, you want to exercise power, build locally. Like, go get your friends, join up, and like get involved, and then and maybe play it cool for a while, and then get into some position of power, and from there change shit. Just it's like fair. This isn't like democracy is slow. And change is slow until it isn't. And you build to the point where it isn't. So, yeah.
Where can people go to learn more about you? Plug away.
You can subscribe to Important Context, which is where you can get my reporting, which, this I'm offering my opinions here. I do not do opinion writing, really. I think in the last, I've written a couple op-eds for MSNBC, but like, that's it. But yeah, importantcontext.news. Find my reporting on public health. The accountabilityjournalism.org. You can subscribe to the Accountability Journalism Institute, which is my nonprofit that is dedicated to restoring faith in America's institutions and science, because science matters and reality matters, and there is a difference between fact and fiction. It's not just a matter of opinion.
Walker, thanks so much for doing this, man.
Thanks for having me. You ask questions that I typically do not get in interviews, so it was a pleasure.
That was Walker Bragman. Check out all of his stuff. Check out his writing. Music for the 1000 Podcast is provided by Andrew Saxon. Be sure to check out his podcast, The Baywatching Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star review, would you? This is still a very new show in the big scheme of things, and every 5-star review helps. And if you want to support this show on the sustainability end, you can do so over at patreon.com/ronplacone. For a give what you can level, you get all kinds of cool content. You get insider information on upcoming films and events. You get a Zoom hang once a month. We do a Zoom hang with other cool, creative people, and it's a lot of fun. It's catharsis, and you can join us for as low as $1 a month, and it helps keep Plaque One Productions sustained. It helps keep the show on the air. It helps with Left at Wall and termination fee. Basically, if you think that anti-capitalist comedy deserves a seat at the table as we're fighting back against fascism, it's a really fun thing to be a part of. Patreon.com/Ron Placone. All right, 1995. What was going on in 1995 was kind of a weird year for me, actually. That was a rough one. We're inching up towards middle school, pre-middle school, if you will, and 95. There's some weird things that happen right after that, but also kind of a carefree time still in the world of Ron with music. Things are definitely happening. You guys know about that. 95 was definitely still a good year for music, but things are about to get a little strange. We're going to dive more into that next week. See you then. Peace. What's up, everybody? The wait is finally over and totally over. Left at Wall is available now, right now. You can get Left at Wall on Apple TV, Google Play, YouTube Movies. You can get it on demand. You can buy it on DVD. The wait is totally over. Just type in Left at Wall on your search bar on your smart TV, and you can find a bunch of ways to get it. You can watch it now. Again, that's Left at Wall, wherever you get your movies. Hey guys, Ron Placone here. Take your own 1,000 challenge. No, you don't need to interview 1,000 people, although if you want to do that, go for it. Your 1,000 challenge can be whatever you want. Maybe you want to call a friend out of the blue once a week. Maybe you want to read a book every month. Maybe you want to start a different garden every season. I guess that might be dependent on where you live. Look, the point of the challenge is taking on an endeavor that enriches your life in some way, and it can be measured. And then, of course, you do it regularly. That's what 1000 is doing for me, and hopefully for you too. The main reason for this podcast and every podcast I've ever done is to build community. So take your own challenge. Then join our Facebook group. It's called 1000 What's Your Challenge? ? That's 1000 What's Your Challenge ? And post about what your 1000 challenge is and the progress you're making. All I ask is that people be encouraging of each other's challenges. This is personal and vulnerable, so be cool. There's enough negativity on social media. We don't need to add to it. For those of you who aren't on Facebook, hopefully in the future we'll be expanding to places like Discord, Reddit, but for now, we're starting on Facebook. And again, that Facebook group is called 1000 What's Your Challenge? See you there.